Time. Okay, so some quick background then, since we're having our first video tutorial, I guess, at our new office that's not quite finished yet for World Freeman Society / my own organization once it gets up and running and our webmaster actually gets some stuff finished up here. But background, I know I discussed at times some of my background with you guys a little bit. But essentially for 12 years now, I think, well, longer actually, I haven't filed income taxes or paid income taxes in 17 years now. I've never been successfully taken to court against Canada Revenue Agency. My philosophy for the longest time was to just stay out of court altogether and never go there. Even if they charged me with something, I figured I'd just ignore it. Never go there, not have to worry about it, learn to live invisible from government, and that was the solution to everything. So that led me to my first court appearance, where I got arrested and was up on a couple of charges for Highway Traffic Act violations, 4 failures to appear on those charges, 2 failures to appear for fingerprinting, obstruction of a peace officer. I think there's about 9 charges altogether, and I was now in for my first court appearance unprepared because I said I was never going to go to court and I was never going to play their game. Right? So that led me to a 3-day trial that I called a trial by fire. And I think I'd already known, yeah, I'd known you guys already by then, where I just disappeared for a while and wound up walking out of a courtroom in Brandon after 3 days, a free man. And that's when things all really started to come together. When I finally understood what was working and what wasn't working, what reactions were getting results in court, and what led to them convicting me on the facts. Even though I tried to plead guilty to the facts for 3 days, they wouldn't let me. They said, no, you have to plead guilty with the understanding you've done something wrong. And I said, no. I said, I don't care. I said, even if you guys convict me, I don't care. What do I care if you guys convict me? I haven't done anything wrong. Go ahead. Ooh. You know, after the 3rd day, I started talking like that. And you could tell they were starting to do this, and you know, they didn't know what to do, and they ended up convicting me on all 9 charges and discharging them immediately. And, oh, Mr. Clifford, we're going to discharge everything right away, though. And I'm like, what do I care? I don't care. Well, okay, well, but so how does a $50 fine sound? I said, it sounds like something I'm not going to pay. I don't care, right? I don't care. I'm done. Are we done now? It's been 3 days. Can I leave now? Right? Never heard about it again, except they tried contacting me several months later and asking where the $50 was. Which, I'm not even going to get into that phone conversation, but I never heard from them ever again after that. So that's some of my background, and ever since then, that was more than a year and a half ago, things have accelerated. We've far surpassed a lot of anybody that we ever did any learning off of. We've had successes in court. We've had successes with notices to the government, driving with our own private plates.
I'm number one for
yeah, I'm mad because the night before I got arrested in November, sorry, I was supposed to switch to my private plate, and I got arrested because my plate was expiring at midnight, and they pulled me over for driving with no license when I was about to switch to my next plate anyways.
I got arrested for being there.
And he got arrested for being my witness, for driving out to in the middle of winter on the perimeter to be my witness. But so he got to put the private plate on his car first, and he's been almost 2 months now. Oh, anytime. Yeah. So aside from the driver's licenses, and you know, I think about almost 2 years ago now, we started sending off the you know, the new e-cores everybody's familiar with, that we've at this point basically just abandoned altogether as being completely irrelevant and useless. The only useful part of the new e-core was the fee schedule. We've gotten into all that kind of stuff, and now we've gotten to the point where we're comfortable that when we're teaching people stuff and sending people into court to do stuff, that they've won, because we're doing it. And so now we want to start getting that information out there and refuting a lot of the information that's out there. A lot of this is my own personal opinion, because anybody that says that there is this definitive, no, this is what's going on, this is the only solution, this document right here, if you don't dot this I right where I tell you to dot it, this document is not going to work. Okay, it's horse shit. It's all horse shit, because everything they're basing their entire argument on whatchamacallit, no substance, but process. Thank you. That's the word I'm thinking of. Sometimes I get a bit of a brain freeze when it comes to that. So they're basing their document on its grammar, instead of what's actually being said, which is what law is. What are you actually saying? What's the substance of your document, right? And one of the problems we found is in the last couple of months when we're trying to teach people this kind of stuff is we're finding that people don't understand because they're not up to speed on the core basics of what's even going on. Everybody's been listening to 800 different gurus on YouTube, Everybody is confused as hell as to what is actually going on.
It's very simple. If you're not going to play their game, you don't have to use their rules.
You don't have to use their rules. It's more of, well, it's very simple. We'll go right back to basics. Everybody's obviously aware of the fact that we were created by God, wherever you believe that to be, right? So I don't care who you want to, all the ancients of old, the intellectuals have all got together, agreed, something greater than us created us. They gave us inalienable rights. We were given dominion over this planet. It's ours, man. So we are man, we are a creation of God. So we'll start with that, and I'll tell you where everybody starts to get going wrong. Because I've made all these arguments in court, and I know what works, and I know what has you arrested on the spot. I've been there, I've done it. I've been arrested more times than anybody I know, including people I know that probably should be arrested on a daily basis. So this all comes from experience. So we all know that we've got the big guy up here. God. It's in the Bible, whatever God you want to believe. He created us. God created man.
He gave us dominion over the earth.
Right? And God gave us, we don't even want to get into that yet. So God created man. And obviously then we start to develop a society and we start to develop laws and the whole 9 yards, and we decide that we need to be able to call ourselves something other than just man, because that's all God created. He just created man. Yeah, as soon as we start, every time we start to alter ourselves from what we were created as, we start to alter our rights somewhat, right? So then I come along and I'm like, well, I want everybody to call me my parents said, well, we want to name our son Dean, and he's of the Kliford family, so we're going to call him Dean Kliford. And they file particulars of a live birth with the government, and the government sends them back this receipt that we call a birth certificate, and it's got this name on it. Now, we've all heard the theories on what that is. We know what that is. We know what that is. We know what that is. There's no point in even talking about any of that kind of stuff. You can go and you can say, I'm Dean Christopher David of the Kliford family and blah, 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 blah. They don't care. They don't care, and I'll tell you why. Because this name right here includes that name. This name right here, it's a legal name. People have referred it to all sorts of things. I've heard the name legal fiction. I've heard straw man, trust, Sestake trust, Sestake v trust. I've heard every name there is out there for what this is, and nobody knows what it is. They've heard it from somebody else. Well, I read the definition of Sestake key trust and blah, 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 and nobody knows what it is. They try making these arguments in court. They try saying to the court, that's a trust. Right? Well, you can't prove that. You can't, what makes you think that's a trust?
You could probably make a logical argument for it.
You can make a logical argument, but that logic is irrelevant in court.
Yeah, pretty much.
Law is relevant.
I've seen some real faulty logic by judges.
Yeah, law is relevant in court, and there's only two forms of law, and we know what those forms of law is. There's God's law, and there's man's law. And God's law is the law where we were told what to do, and that's not open to negotiation. Man was all created equal. No man can tell another what to do, which means that any agreement between man is a contract, and that's contract law, and that's the only other form of law. So it's broken down into two, and that is it. So what is this? And what I've come to believe personally, and I know I'm right because it's worked every single time, is this is a presumption of law. Now, most people think that when you say the word straw man, they actually think it's this real legal identity that's defined and has some account file somewhere with the government, and it exists, and it's this one specific little thing that was created, and they can positively identify it. And it's not at all what this is. This is basically for anybody that fishes. You go fishing. You just want to throw a line out there and see what takes the bait, right? This is a presumption of law. They put this name on a document, and it could be anything. And then from there, they have to get this guy to fit himself into their presumption. And that presumption is that you're bound by one of their statutes that regulates you, which is a contract, right? So this name could be anything. This name is a person. This is a person. I've heard people say, I'm not a person because a person defined in that act is this and this and this and this. Well, you only sound like an idiot when you say you're not a person. Of course you're a person. But they redefine the word person within their own act. And that's why I say, well, I'm a person, but I'm a person as defined in Black's Law Dictionary. What definition are you using? Yeah. Oh, no, feel free to...
Just a person, like, if you actually look back at the
I know.
ancient ancestry of the word...
Persona, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, it comes from the Greek.
The problem is as society evolves, we've all come to call ourselves persons, right?
Right, so it's
Yeah.
the evolution of language.
We act in the capacity of a...
Nowadays,
Yeah.
we do use it like that.
We act in the capacity of a person. We can go back to ancient laws about where they say, well, it comes from the Latin persona and this and that, and well, I'm not a person and this and that, right? That's actually, it's an irrelevant argument. It's really irrelevant. That's why people are losing in court, just saying, I'm not a person.
But that's where they screw us in the courts, because everyone's operating by the more modern definition, that the law society is working by the old definition.
Yeah.
If you're a person, you're a personage, you've taken an oath of fealty, or you've entered into contract.
Yeah. See, but this is the problem. I can ask 100 different people, I can ask 1,000 different people what person means, and I'm going to get 1,000 different answers. So it's that argument is also irrelevant. It all comes down to and here's the problem.
Well, it's a presumption of law that all parties involved know what they're talking about.
It's a presumption of law in the terms of, and I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this because I'm not used to dealing with this. It's a presumption of law in courts deal in presumptions that until rebutted stand. So if they make this term generic enough, it could mean anything. So any presumption will go. Any presumption. Because they operate on presumptions. And they need you to not rebut those presumptions.
That's right.
Yes.
So most of them are unstated.
Yeah.
And you rebut them.
Yeah, so we all know that the man, you know, is, and then when I take it from my own name, I've capitalized it, and it's capitis diminutia minima, and then they take my family name away and they capitalize my family name only, and it's capitis diminutia media, and it's a medium loss of rights, and then they create this all capital letter name that if I agree to accommodate that name, it's capitis diminutia maxima, and it's a complete loss of rights, and you can't make those arguments in court, right?
If you look on bail and recognizance like forms,
Yep.
they have each different type in the different areas.
Yeah, it's a presumption of law, so anything fits into that.
Like this.
You could fit into this presumption of law. It encompasses everything. So from there, you have to start and you have to work backwards and remove the presumptions, is the way you have to work in this in court, right? And they have to, once you rebut presumptions, yeah, like you're just, yeah, it's a presumption of law.
Yeah.
Or refute their unstated
Yeah,
claims.
but the thing is if you start with a presumption of law, then you go on to identify what, you know, so you narrow down the presumption from there. And you can basically work backwards from a presumption and go all the way back to a man by rebutting contracts that don't exist. And it restores your rights automatically. So that's why everybody they think, well, no, that's not me. Well, no, actually, that could be you.
But isn't it easiest just to say, you know, like if they say, is your name such and such? Well, can you prove I'm even required to have a name?
Well, you are. I mean, unless you want to get locked away, if you're required, if you're gonna live in society, you're gonna have to have a name. They can't just call you man. There's 7 billion mans on this planet. We're all mankind.
If I have self-ownership, can I not name myself?
Yes, you can. So it depends on what you're calling yourself in what contracting capacity. When you enter a contract with somebody, you have to